I have been getting super into airsoft lately, and I wish I would have gotten into it sooner, but can't change the past, but I'm super enjoying it now, so I want to make a video on things that I wish I knew before I got into it in 2026. For anyone who's hoping to get into the hobby now, here are some tips that I learned along the way that I wish I would have known going into it, and I've even got a few tips from some pro players who wanted to pass along some knowledge as well. Now, this is not in any particular order, so it's not, the first tip is the most important. It's not stay tuned for the last tip because that's the most important one. I'm not going to clickbait you like that. This is just my thoughts on different things that I think are important to know when you're getting into it, and some things that would save you some time, money, or other things. All the footage you'll see here was shot at Summer Slaughter 16, which was a huge airsoft event that just passed. So thank you to them for letting me film all this and get all this footage. It is shot on a 360-degree camera, and I was also out there taking photos as well. I'm going to share a few of my airsoft photography photos that I've taken along the way as well, so it's just something interesting to have on screen while I'm yapping. And one last side note, if you see this big event with all these players and say, hey, I want to do something like that, shout out to Willamette Valley Airsoft. They are going to be having a big event in August, which hopefully when you're watching this is before August, called Operation Smoke and Mirrors. Check out Willamette Valley Airsoft for a little bit more information about that and to get involved if you want to join a big event with a ton of people. Okay, enough side notes. Let's get into the meat and potatoes. Things that I wish I knew. Number one, the biggest thing. One of the biggest things that kept me away for a little bit longer than I probably should have been was preconceived notions that I had about the hobby, and more specifically, the people involved in the hobby. If you've spent any time in any hobby, really, you always know that there's that segment of that guy, those players, the kind of people that make the entire hobby look bad. They're very, very infamous in Warhammer, in Yu-Gi-Oh!, in Magic the Gathering, League of Legends. There is a certain type of player that you don't want to run into. And before I really got into this hobby, I thought that the vast majority of people that I would run into in Airsoft were like the hyper milsim, incel chud type who just wanted to look down on people. They were going to bark orders at you and look down upon you, and I couldn't have been farther from the truth. After spending some time in the hobby now, I've met so many people who enjoy so many different aspects of the game. I'm going to talk a little bit about that later, but just know that you have seen those people online. I'm sure you've seen the horror stories, but the vast majority of the people who are out here are just trying to have fun, trying to get a little bit of exercise, trying to show off their fun toys and do fun things. So don't let that scare you away. The second thing I wish I would have known is that there is so much more to it than just the military sim side. There is a whole bunch of people who enjoy the game for just LARPing. Shout out to Tony in the Pacific Northwest who runs the LARP games. This is his awesome outfit here. There's people who dress up like Deadpool and run around just minigunning people to Aura Farm and have fun. Shout out to Airsoft Deadpool, seen here. And there's a bunch of people who are just in it to make a bunch of different weapons. They spend a lot of time tinkering and inventing and building things. There's people like me who are out here just doing photography because we enjoy doing the photography aspect of it. So it's not just all, hey, I got to dress up like a military guy and run around following military orders. There's really so many different ways to make your own fun. Do what you enjoy, play the way that you want to play, and find other people who want to play in that way. The third thing I wish I knew was just how physically demanding this hobby is. You'll see on the screen here, people are just kind of walking out of the start of that match, and that is because I didn't know this at the time. This match lasted, I think, an hour and a half, so if you went sprinting right out of the gates, you were going to be winded within the first 5 minutes of an hour and a half long match. This means younger people, you do have an advantage. You've got that youthful energy. You're not afraid to run and dip and dive. You're not afraid to crouch down for long periods of time or crawl along the grass. But me, I'm turning 35 here soon. I've been out of shape for most of my life. I'm working on losing weight, but it's a physically demanding hobby, and that is a good thing. I've never felt better than running around these matches, but I've got some improvement to do. I know I'm going to need to lose some more weight. I'm going to need to work on stretching. I'm going to need to work on doing some endurance things because some of these matches can last a long time and it's very physical. I find myself hiding behind barrels. I got knee pads so I can crouch down because my knees aren't what they used to be. It's definitely hard to crouch for long periods of time. So knee pads, get yourself some knee pads if you're old like me. In that same vein, if you've been looking to lose a little weight, get a little active, this is the way to get active. In my area, again, Pacific Northwest, shout out to the Willamette Valley Airsoft, everyone out here in Oregon, Washington, it seems like there is a game every single weekend and weekdays. So if you want an excuse to go out every weekend, do a little bit of running and hiking, this is it. The next thing I wish I knew getting into it is there is a lot of knowledge. There's a lot to learn, a lot to know, and you can know as little or as much as you want to. If you just want to rent some gear and go out and shoot some BBs, you can do that. If you want to research the difference between AEG and HPA and get into the tinkering side of it, you can do that. When you spend time among all the people who've been doing it for a while, you're going to hear them talking about nods or dead rags or CQBs or DSGs, and there's a lot to it. So again, if you don't want to be overwhelmed by it all, you can just jump in and start playing. You don't need to know all of that. But if you're a person who really likes to dive into the nitty gritty of the hobby and learn everything there is to it, there is a lot to learn. There is one exception to this, and there is one thing that you need to know going into the hobby, one thing you absolutely should not skimp on, one thing you should I'll learn that later, and that is ANSI. Also known as your face protection. Obviously, you're shooting very fast BBs at each other. The most important thing you can do is cover your face and your eyes. Now, there's a big debate in the community over whether you just need eye protection or nose protection, mouth protection. You see a little bit of my head in the shots here. I'm wearing a full paintball mask with the protection on the goggles because I wanted to protect my ears, my eyes, my lips, my face, everything. There are some people who are running around in just goggles. But the most thing that is most important for your eyes is you need a sealed pair of protective ANSI gear that is rated and approved for the field. I have only gone to a few games so far. I'm still very new, so of course I'm not going to fully recommend anything because I'm still new. I'm not in a position to do that. However, in the 4 or 5 games I've shown up to, I've seen people turned away because they're wearing a gas mask they bought off of eBay that had no rating. It was just glass on the lenses. I've seen people show up in the safety goggles that you'd wear in high school when you're going to chemistry class for the first time. I've seen people show up in just a pair of Oakleys, just a pair of sunglasses that you would buy for $20 from the mall. There's a lot of different things that people show up in. And again, there's a lot of debate over that. And I don't want to get super into the debate. I want to say protection is the most important thing for me. So learn about the proper rating and get the proper eyewear to protect yourself properly. A little bit later in the video, I was going to show some different advice I got from players who've been in it for a long time. I think now's a good time. The vast majority of them, when I asked if you were to teach a new player something new, or if you give one piece of advice to someone who is new to the hobby, what would it be? They all said eye protection is the most important.
All right, you're on.
I would say for you new players, first of all, don't skimp out on this. Make sure you have quality eye protection, okay? Last thing we want is you to lose an eye because you bought cheap eye protection. The other thing is don't be intimidated by all these other players who look like they fast roped out of a helicopter and they're some special forces guy. Your little Springer pistol or your Springer rifle will hit them, and they're just as well as any of these high-power, high-end airsoft guns. And most importantly, have fun. Call your hits.
All right, you're live.
As a new player, the first thing I'd say, the guns are really cool and all that, but the best thing you can buy is good eye and face protection so you can see out on the field. And teeth are not cheap. Buy good eye and face protection. The guns will come later. Everything comes later. Protect yourself first. How's it going?
All right, you're good.
Awesome. If I could give any advice to a new player, I think
What are you
the
looking
biggest
for today?
thing, yes, safety is good. Always put that first.
So people might debate what is best to wear, and again, I'm not going to get into that, but spend the money and get a quality piece of protective gear. Please, 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 if you take nothing else from this video, that is the most important takeaway. All right, that's enough preaching for now. Let's move on to other things I wish I knew. Next thing I wish I knew getting into it, find your local fields, play all your different local fields, and find a home base. Find one that you like playing at. As I've said, I've gone out only about 5 different times, but I've played at 4 or 5 different fields now, and each field plays way differently. The way that they play, their safety measures, what the field looks like, the kind of games they play at the field, the general vibes of the field, all these things are different. So don't go to just one field and say, oh, you know what, I didn't really like that, so this isn't for me. Try the different fields. Hopefully your area has a lot of different options, so you can find one that really meets what you want out of the game. If you're in the Pacific Northwest like me, we have tons of options. I personally have really enjoyed the swamp down in Lebanon, but I've also played at Extreme Velocities Field, Coyote Ridge out in Eugene, Oregon. This, of course, was Summer Slaughter in St. Paul. There's a lot of different options, at least in my area, and I've tried them all, and there are certain fields that I like more than other ones. So, again, go out and try those different fields, and you might find you have more fun in one area than another. That also goes for indoor versus outdoor. There's a big difference between indoor airsoft and outdoor airsoft, so try both and see which one you enjoy. I found that I really like outdoor airsoft. There's a lot more to it, so I enjoy that, but that's not to say that you might not enjoy indoor airsoft. Now let's talk about cost, because I do wish I would have known more about the cost before jumping into the hobby. I don't regret it, but that's always something people talk about, especially now where we don't have as much money as we would like, and the economy where it is, and don't want to get into that, but let's talk a little bit about cost of entry. I've seen that most fields that I've visited is somewhere between $30 and $50 to play for the entire day. Usually around like $35 to $40 is if you're renting gear and they give you the BBs and the head and the weapon that you need, and something like $30 or $35 to just play all day. Not too bad. Considering a movie for 2 hours is about $20, $25 nowadays, $35 for all day of play is a pretty awesome deal. But if you're looking to buy everything outright and start collecting, you're looking at closer to $300 to $500. I talked to Thunder Kiss Northwest, which is an excellent store in the Northwest. If you're around the area, go check them out for sure. They said somewhere around $300 usually for like a very entry-level piece of gear to get started. And that includes your iPro, your replica, your BBs, your batteries, your charger, all the extras. But one piece of gear I haven't seen included in that I would definitely recommend is your shoes. You're going to be running around a lot. And I've heard some of the LARPers who play in the winter time and the fall time where it's raining a lot have actually given themselves trench foot from running around in wet socks all day long. That's what happens when you LARP too hard. You give yourself actual like Civil War era afflictions by not changing your socks properly. But make sure if you're going to get into this, you get the right pair of shoes for the field. I prefer wearing Gore-Tex boots that cover my ankles to give me a little bit more stability when I'm running around, especially on ground that has a lot of hills and a lot of dirt piles and a lot of holes, as well as it is completely waterproof, so I don't have to worry about the rain when it comes to the wet season. Now let's talk about getting hit. This is something I definitely wish I knew. Everyone who gets into the hobby immediately thinks, what's it feel like to get hit? And I won't lie, it doesn't feel good, but it doesn't hurt nearly as bad as some people imagine it would. But there was something that I didn't know that would happen that was really, really interesting, and so I wish I knew going into it that even though it doesn't hurt, it does get irritating. And I've seen some people get very heated for very good reason for getting hit, especially if you got someone who runs up and like full autos you at close quarters. That can hurt and be really frustrating. So you need to have a level head playing in the game. Going into it, you need to know this is just for fun. This is a fun hobby. This is enjoyable. Assume that when people make mistakes, it's not an intentional thing, because it's very easy to get very heated. And I've seen people very much lose control of their emotions, and that is not a good thing. One of the games I was at, I watched a grown man flip off a child because he got hit, obviously not in control of his emotions. At one of the events I was at, when I was doing photography, someone was intentionally targeting me and shooting me, even though I was not a combatant, even though I was not a part of the game. They were intentionally targeting me, and I felt myself getting very heated over that. And it's important to recognize those emotions and saying, hey, I need to take a break. I need to go get some water, step away, whatever it may be. Just know that is a part of the game as well. And you don't want to have outbursts, conflicts. You don't want to evolve into a fight. So going into it, know those emotions are at play, and there is a certain level of emotional maturity that is required within the hobby to, again, notice, okay, this is not intentional. It was an accident. Mistakes happen. I'm getting heated, I'm going to walk away. I'm going to take 10 minutes to go to cool off, to drink some water, whatever it is. Know that that is going to happen, and you need to be in control of your emotions and taking control and care of yourself in these moments. The last thing I'm going to leave you with for my things that I wish I knew getting into Airsoft 2026 is I wish I knew not to trust every single source, especially when you're dealing with Reddit, TikTok, word of mouth, internet, all those sort of things. There's always going to be inherent biases, and there's a few different things that I learned going into the hobby that weren't necessarily the best habits to have learned or to have known, and people who I actually got to know at the fields and talk to in person, people who've been doing this for a long time, people who repair weapons, all that, were able to give me much better advice than just random people on the internet. Now, I know that's ironic considering I'm a random person on the internet giving you advice. I understand the irony, I see it. What I'm saying is, just because someone posted on Reddit doesn't necessarily make it true, so make sure you're double checking those sources so you don't make a big mistake or a big regret, especially if you're about ready to drop like $1,000 on a new kit or a new replica. Knowing that certain sites are trustworthy and other ones are not is going to be very important when you're first getting into it and first kitting yourself out. That's it for what I had to share that I wanted to talk about in this video. If you're a new player or a pro player who's been here for a while, whatever reason you've made it this far, feel free to leave a comment down below about advice you would like to pass on or things you wish you had known or mistakes you made and regret. I am going to end this with a couple more clips from different people I spoke to at Summer Slaughter 16 who wanted to participate in the video and give some information, so I will conclude with that. Thank you so much for watching and have a blessed day.
So for getting into Airsoft, I would recommend starting out, like for example, a rental, just to know that you find the sport fun. And if you enjoy it, I'd recommend either A, if you want to go into the more realistic side, go into gas blowback rifles. Yes, they can be pricey, but if you go into it, they will find a lot of fun in it. I've recently also got into the gas blowback side of things. If you're going AAGs, start with like a Lancer. Start with something simple and then you can upgrade it. Everything is normally very upgradable in the Airsoft world of things, unless it's very proprietary. So I'd recommend getting a system that's has a lot of upgrade parts and try not to get anything too proprietary. And then just try to have fun. Don't let people ruin it for you. Don't let people not calling hits ruin all the fun just because they want to be mean themselves.
Also, it's a game. You're out here to have fun. You don't ever want to let this become too stressful. If someone's not calling their hits, just take it as someone not wanting to call their hits. Don't ever get worked up. A lot of people get overworked up. You don't need to do that. At the end of the day, we're all out here to have fun, play, and enjoy our time. Always take it as it is. It's just a game.
Probably the best bit of advice would just be like talk to the local community, get to know everybody, and everybody's pretty chill. If you have any questions, most people are willing to answer it, so just get to know everybody and you'll find a group that's cool and you can roll with, and yeah, let's just talk to people. Especially something like this. This is the perfect place to do it too.
You could give one piece of advice to someone new to Airsoft in 2026, wanting to get into it. What would be your piece of advice for them?
The best piece of advice for someone getting into Airsoft for 2026, find the local fields that you want to go to, figure out if you want to do indoor or outdoor, and see if you can just get out there and play. You only need $200-300 to buy your whole full new setup. You can get it for less if you want to get used. Find people to play with, man. That's the hardest part about Airsoft, is finding somewhere to go regularly and just have fun.